When I stood up for David and his service dog against a cruel health inspector who threatened to shut down our coffee shop, I thought my career was over. But what happened next would prove that sometimes defending those who served our country brings unexpected allies, and that the Army never forgets those who stand by their own. Hi everyone, welcome to Life's Changing Stories. Now let's dive into today's story. Elena Vasquez was 33 years old and had found her calling in the most unexpected place, behind the counter of Hometown Brew, a cozy coffee shop just outside Fort Carson Army Base in Colorado Springs. While her college friends climbed corporate ladders in Denver and made six-figure salaries, Elena had discovered something more valuable, a community that felt like family. Her journey to Hometown Brew had started 6 years earlier, when she was fresh out of business school and completely lost. Her father, Sergeant Major Carlos Vasquez, had served 3 tours in Afghanistan before retiring, and Elena had watched him struggle with the transition to civilian life. The coffee shop had become his sanctuary, a place where other veterans understood the weight he carried, where his service was respected, and where he could find peace among people who truly got it. When the previous owner decided to sell, Elena used her business degree not to chase corporate success, but to buy the little shop that had helped save her father. Her mother had been horrified. "You're wasting your education, mija," she'd said. "You could be making real money in the city." But Elena knew better. Some things were worth more than money. Under Elena's management, Hometown Brew became the unofficial headquarters for the military community surrounding Fort Carson. She kept detailed notes about every regular customer, who was deployed, whose spouse was struggling, which families needed extra support during difficult times. The shop's location, just a mile from the base's main gate, made it a natural gathering spot for soldiers, veterans, and military families. But Elena's true passion lay in supporting veterans, especially those dealing with invisible wounds. She'd watched her father battle PTSD and knew how crucial it was for these heroes to have a place where they felt understood and accepted. Every Friday morning, she hosted Warriors Coffee Hour, which had grown from 3 regulars to over 30 veterans who gathered to share stories, offer support, and simply exist in a space where their experiences were valued. The walls behind the counter were covered with photos of service members who'd found community at Hometown Brew, some in uniform, some in civilian clothes, all part of the extended family Elena had built. She made a special point of welcoming veterans who brought service dogs, understanding better than most how crucial these partnerships were for healing and rebuilding lives. That understanding came from watching her father's transformation after he was paired with Rex, a German shepherd who'd helped him navigate crowded spaces and cope with sudden anxiety attacks. Elena wished service dogs had been more common during her father's early struggles, but she was determined to ensure every veteran who walked through her doors with a 4-legged partner felt completely welcome. David Chen was one of those veterans. The 28-year-old former Army medic had been coming to Hometown Brew for almost 2 years, always accompanied by Scout, a golden retriever whose calm presence and intelligent eyes spoke of extensive training. When David first started visiting, he could barely maintain eye contact while ordering his coffee, and loud noises would send him into visible distress. Scout, wearing his official service dog vest, would press against David's legs during these moments, providing the grounding and comfort that medication and therapy were still working to achieve. Over time, with Elena's gentle encouragement and Scout's unwavering support, David had gradually become more comfortable in social situations. He'd even started participating in Warriors Coffee Hour, sharing stories about his medical unit and the soldiers he'd helped save in Syria. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning in September when Mr. Gerald Harrison, the new county health inspector, walked into Hometown Brew. Harrison had earned a reputation for ruthless enforcement since taking over the position 3 months earlier. He'd already forced 2 family restaurants to close and seemed to take pleasure in wielding his authority over small business owners. Elena was working the morning rush when David entered with Scout, both of them following their usual routine. Scout wore his service dog identification clearly displayed, and he immediately took his position beside David's legs as they approached the counter. The coffee shop buzzed with its typical morning energy. Soldiers grabbing coffee before shift change, veterans catching up over breakfast, local residents starting their day. Harrison, who'd been silently observing the operation from a corner table, suddenly exploded into action. "Stop everything!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the morning chatter like a gunshot. "You cannot have animals in a food service establishment. This is a serious health code violation." The sudden outburst made several customers jump, and Elena watched in horror as David began to tremble. Scout immediately pressed closer to his handler, sensing the rising anxiety and responding with the training that had taken months to perfect. "Sir," Elena said calmly, stepping forward with her hands raised in a peaceful gesture, "Scout is a registered service dog. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, service animals are legally permitted in all food service establishments." Harrison's face flushed red with indignation. "I don't care about any so-called laws," he snapped. "I am the health inspector for this county, and I say no animals are allowed. Either that dog leaves immediately, or I'm shutting this place down right now." The district manager for the coffee chain, who'd been present for the scheduled inspection, looked absolutely mortified. She rushed over to Elena with panic in her eyes. "Elena, please just apologize and ask them to leave. We can't afford to lose our operating license." Elena looked at David, whose hands were shaking as he tried to back toward the door. Scout maintained his position, providing the stability his handler desperately needed. Around the coffee shop, other veterans and military personnel watched the scene unfold with growing anger and disbelief. "I won't apologize for following federal law," Elena said firmly, her voice carrying across the now silent coffee shop. "My father served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He taught me that standing up for what's right matters more than keeping a job." The district manager's face went white with fury. "Then you don't have a job anymore," she screamed. "You're fired. Clear out your things and get out." Elena untied her apron with steady hands, though her heart was pounding. 6 years of building relationships, creating community, supporting veterans, all of it ending because she'd refused to betray the values her father had instilled in her. Rent was due next week, she had no savings to fall back on, and her entire career was crumbling around her. But as she gathered her personal belongings from behind the counter, Elena knew she'd made the right choice. Some principles were worth more than paychecks. What none of them realized was that Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, whose husband commanded the base's military police unit, had been in line behind David when Harrison began his tirade. She'd filmed the entire confrontation on her phone, and within minutes of Elena's firing, the video was spreading through Fort Carson's communication networks like wildfire. Elena was loading her car in the parking lot when she heard it, a low rumble that seemed to come from the earth itself. Then another, and another. The sound grew until the ground beneath her feet vibrated with the power of multiple engines approaching in formation. She turned toward the main road and felt her breath catch in her throat. Military vehicles were pulling into Hometown Brew's parking lot in a steady stream. Humvees, troop transports, even several motorcycles ridden by off-duty soldiers. But it wasn't just the vehicles that took her breath away. It was the sight of dozens of soldiers in dress uniforms forming orderly ranks in the parking lot. Leading them was Colonel Rebecca Martinez, the base commander herself, her bearing radiating the kind of authority that came from decades of military service. Elena had seen her photo in the local newspaper, but had never imagined she'd meet the woman who oversaw 30,000 soldiers. Colonel Martinez strode through the coffee shop's front door with purpose, her polished boots clicking against the tile floor. The entire establishment fell silent as she approached Harrison and the district manager, both of whom looked like they'd seen a ghost. "Gentlemen," Colonel Martinez said, her voice carrying the unmistakable tone of command, "I believe we need to discuss your treatment of our veterans." Harrison attempted to assert his authority. "Ma'am, I was simply enforcing health." "The veteran you just humiliated," Colonel Martinez interrupted, "is David Chen. Sergeant Chen earned a Bronze Star for valor after saving 12 soldiers during a roadside bombing in Syria. His service dog, Scout, was trained through a program I personally oversee for veterans dealing with combat-related PTSD." The color drained from Harrison's face as the full weight of his mistake became clear. Colonel Martinez continued, "I'm going to make one phone call to the state health department. By tomorrow, Mr. Harrison, you'll be working in a different county. And you," she turned to the district manager, "will be attending mandatory training on disability rights and military support." Then she turned to Elena, who was standing near the counter, still clutching her personal belongings. "Ms. Vasquez," Colonel Martinez said, "we've been looking for someone to run our new veteran support program at the base. Someone who understands both business operations and the importance of standing up for what's right. The position comes with full benefits, housing allowance, and the opportunity to make a real difference in veterans' lives. The job is yours if you want it." Elena stared at the colonel in shock. Are you serious?" "Dead serious. We need people with your integrity working with our veterans." Within 24 hours, the video of Elena's stand had spread throughout military communities across the country. The coffee chain's corporate headquarters issued a formal apology and announced a new partnership with military service dog organizations, with Elena as the program's national director. Hometown Brew was transformed into a model location, featuring a dedicated welcome area for service dogs and their handlers, information about veteran resources, and a wall of honor celebrating the military community it served. The following Friday, something remarkable happened during Warriors Coffee Hour. David, with Scout by his side, stood up in front of the gathered veterans and spoke for the first time about his deployment experiences. His voice started shaky as he described the day his medical unit came under attack, but it grew stronger as he talked about the soldiers he'd saved. The room listened in respectful silence as David shared his story, Scout never leaving his side. When he finished, an older veteran stood up and walked over to clasp David's shoulder. "Welcome home, brother," the man said simply. Elena, watching from behind the counter, felt tears fill her eyes. This was exactly why she'd been willing to sacrifice her job. For moments like this, when healing happened and heroes were honored. Today, Elena runs both the Veteran Support Program at Fort Carson and the National Service Dog Initiative for the coffee chain. David and Scout still visit every morning, now joined by dozens of other veterans and their service animals. The wall of photos behind the counter has expanded to include pictures of service dogs alongside their handlers, each pair representing a story of courage, healing, and hope. Elena keeps her father's photo in the center of the display, next to a sign that reads, "All who served welcome, 2 legs or 4 paws." The district manager who fired Elena now works as her assistant, helping train other businesses about service dog accommodations and veteran support. She often tells people that firing Elena was the biggest mistake of her career, but working with her now has been the most meaningful job she's ever had. Elena's father had always told her that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. That Tuesday morning at Hometown Brew, Elena proved him right. She also discovered something her father never told her. When you stand up for the right people will stand up for you. The coffee shop still serves the best coffee in Colorado Springs, but more importantly, it serves as a reminder that some values, loyalty, integrity, respect for those who've served, are worth more than any paycheck. And sometimes, when you're willing to lose everything for what you believe in, you end up gaining more than you ever imagined possible. We hope you enjoyed today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.